Continue chapter 8, which was about what ecosystem and biosphere. We talking about that previously, which is energy transfer. Okay, and we're talking about producer today. Inshallah, I'm going to continue, which is about consumer. Okay. Just for remember, the last thing we were talking about what producer, okay? You're talking about how transfer energy from organism to another organism, okay? And which level has more energy, okay? As we're talking about, the level for producers level has most energy because they have what? Because they are make on food or magnified food, okay? Okay. Yalla. What the consumer? Consumer. What is consumer? Consumer are organisms that cannot make own food. So how they get energy? They cannot make food like producer. So how they make food? How they get energy? They depend on what? They depend on other organism of energy. So they eating other organism to get energy. Okay? That's in general about consumer. Okay? For example, it is a consumer living thing and this is producer living thing. It has another name, be careful. In ecology, producer has name is autotroph and consumer in ecology has what? Heterotroph organism, okay? Heterotroph organism which describe the organism that cannot make own food or they can. So how they get food? They depend on other organism. But autotroph which is they can make own food by using sunlight and by a process which is photosynthesis. They make own food. For example, producer give to the other leaf is what? Biomass. In last lesson we talking about the biomass in biology or ecosystem, which means about organic material, which is carbon, sugar, protein. Okay, these are biomasses. Okay, how are heterotrophs different from autotrophs? As I mentioned, they cannot what? They cannot make their own food. So how they get energy? While autotrophs describe what? Producer can produce their own food. Do heterotrophs magnify their own food? Of course not. Heterotroph cannot make own food. So they depending to other organisms. Okay, it is in general. Clear? So let's explain in the mind map. It will be easier and don't forget it. In general, consumer has another name in ecosystem called what? As I say mentioned it before, heterotrophs. Okay, consumer. Consumer, ecology speaking, hetero are consumer. Okay, consumer, unlike heterotrophs, cannot magnify their food, as I mentioned. For example, heterotrophs such as what? Plant. Okay, all plants are heterotrophs because they can make own food. Heterotrophs such as, for example, these birds eating what? Fish. That's it's from which kind of class? Heterotrophs or autotroph? From heterotrophs. Why? Because it's eating what? Other organism, which means they get energy from the other organism. Okay. So, who are they? We call who? It's consumer. Who? All animals are heterotrophs because we don't have any animal can make own food. Okay, in their body. Not prepare for yourself, in their body. Okay, be careful, don't confuse it. If you say, Shirin, we are can make kebabs or hamburger, no, I don't mean about these things. We are talking about which is because producer they can make own food inside themselves. Okay, but all animals and include human tools. Okay, it is consumer. And most protists, not all of them, but most of protists are consumer. And all fungi, okay, are consumer too, and many bacteria, okay, many bacteria, not all bacteria, okay, they are consumer. As we know, you have two types of bacteria. Some of them is useful, some of them is harmful, okay. Some are useful, it's living in our bodies too, okay. So how they getting food? Which is by eating other organisms. For example, this lion eating what? This organism, okay? So, or some of them by eating organism or organic matter or organic waste or remain things. Okay, for example, eating organic waste. This worm eating organic waste, okay? So, how they obtain energy? They obtain energy by consuming organic molecule made by organism. For example, this is plant. Plant is from which part? Producer or autotrophs. The grasshoppers start to eat it, which is get energy. And the grasshopper will be eaten by frog. So the energy is transferred, of course. The energy transfer from producer to consumer, from consumer to another consumer. Okay, so it has name too. So I'm going to explain. Energy obtained consuming organic molecule. Okay, look at here. This is important and it's easy. Okay, consumer. Consumer, it has which kind of name in ecology? Heterotroph or autotrophs? Heterotrophs. Okay. Consumer can be grouped according to what? Be careful, it's important for exam, okay? The most common example, for exam, consumer can be grouped by what? According what? According the type of food they eating. What does it mean? Let's know. Into what? 4 groups. The first one, herbivore. Okay? Herbivore, carnivore, omnivore, or detritivores. Herbivore, which means eat only producer, which means eat only plant. They depending only on plant. Okay? For example, we have what? For example, look at here. Antotlope, okay? Antotlope, okay? They eat only what? Only grass. Okay? That means only depend on producer. Okay? Don't eat other organism. It called from which kind of group? Herbivore. Herbivores. And another zooplankton, which is feed on phytoplankton. Okay. This is the protist, which is only eat what? Phytoplankton is a type of protist. Okay. It includes or related to plant. Okay. So let's go to carnivore. Eat other consumer. Eat other consumer. That means does not eat producer. Only what? Consumer. Eat one? Only consumer. Such as lion, alligator, cobra, plain mantis. Okay, these are an example of carnivore, which is they only eat consumer, which is they only eat what? Meat. Omnivore. Omnivore, they eat both. They eating both plant and animals. Plant and which means producer and consumer. Clear? For example, the bird eat fish and eat two berries. Okay, it's very delicious, right? Okay, berries and salmon, and it's very healthy too, right? And it's very bird is very healthy. Eating berry and salmon, the two delicious things, right? And what about human? From which kind of group? From which kind of group? From omnivores group, which is it both consumer and producer. Clear? Both eat plant and animal. Okay. Let's go the last groups, which is detritivores. Eat what? Dead organism. Eat what? Dead organism. Waste and organic matter, or the garbage. Okay, they eating. For example, vulture. This one, the vulture, eating the dead organism or remain from the organisms, or bacteria and fungi. Bacteria and fungi from a group which is decomposer. I'm calling bacteria and fungi natural recycling. Natural recycling. Okay, let's how? Okay. So, what are What are bacteria and fungi called in ecosystem? In ecosystem, fungi and bacteria called what? Decomposer. And I am called them natural recycling too. Shirin called some bacteria and fungi natural recycling, because naturally they recycling every remain and every dead animals or plant or waste and back to the soil or back to the earth. That's means they have an important job, which is natural recycling. Okay, who doing this? Bacteria and fungi. Clear? Okay, so bacteria and fungi call in ecosystem what? Decomposer. Call what? Decomposer. And machine call them what? Natural recycling. That's real. What do decomposer do? What they are doing? The important job they doing. If there is no bacteria and fungi, what happened to the earth? Start to destroy it. Yes, that's why they are natural. They are very important. What do decomposer? They break down what? Dead organism. They break down dead organism and waste into what? Simple substance, which means complex substance turning into simple substance and returning to the soil, and return to the soil in the same form like water, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. Okay. So what happened into the natural releases during decomposer? Some absorbed by decomposer and some return to the soil or water. Okay? Look at this picture. It's an apple. What happened to the apple? Start to destroy it. If there is no fungi and bacteria, what happened? You feel what? A bad smell, okay? So because of this, bacteria start to what? To break down the dead organism or into what? Simple substance, which is into form water, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, nitrogen, which is very important for soil. Again, from the soil, the plant, which absorbed by root, and it's again, okay? Start to live again. Okay. Why decomposer important? It recycle. It recycle nutrients. And what? Make them available for plant atrophies. As I said, they change it into form, oxygen, carbon, organic material. Okay? Yes. Let's go energy flows. How energy is flow? As I said, talking about the level of the parametric of energy. The below level has more energy at the second level. Okay, let's know how. Energy flow through the ecosystem when organism, how flow the energy, how flow energy from this level to another level. Organisms eat, where they eat each other. For example, sheep eat what? Plant. So sheep get energy from the plant, and the sheep will be eaten by human, and human get energy from sheep. Okay, so step by step. Okay, transfer energy from what? From producer to consumer. It is very important at this point. So energy is transferred from what to what? The first, the source. From consumer to producer, or from producer to consumer? From producer to consumer. Be careful, especially for optional exam. Okay, it's very important. Okay, or for true false exam. So is energy transfer from what to what? From consumer to producer, or from producer to consumer? From producer to consumer. Okay. Organisms are grouped into trophic level based on what? How they get energy, which means how they get or how they eat other organisms. Classified. The first level, which is the under, it's called producer. The first level, which part of organism is living? Producer. In the second one, herbivore. Producer, we're talking about producer. Herbivore are the second level. Carnivore are that eat herbivore are the third level. Most ecosystems, be careful, most ecosystems have about how many levels? 3 or 4. That's important. So most ecosystems have about 3 or 4 tropical levels. Okay? Look at here, if you compare. Oh, this is the first one. Which kind of organism is present? The producer one, right? After producer one, we have what? It is producer. Okay? It's producer. Okay, so after producer, which is eat producer, we call them what? Herbivore. Okay? It is herbivore. After, we have what? The organism that eat consumers called what? Called carnivore. So carnivore is the third one. Ecosystem, mostly it's about how many levels? 3 or 4? 3 or 4. Okay? 3 or 4 levels. Clear? Yeah. It's easy, right? Biology is easy. The easiest subject in school. Do you agree with me? Right? Okay. Yes, food chain and food web. Food chain and food web. You study in class 7, if you remember. Food chain and food web. What the difference between them? Food chain is a single pathway of feeding. If a single pathway of feeding, relationship among organisms in ecosystem that relates energy transfer. For example, look at this picture. We have what? This is a grass. Producer will be eaten by grasshopper. Grasshopper is a type of herbivore. Okay? So after, maybe the grasshopper will be eaten by this bird, which is consumer. Okay? And maybe this bird will be eaten by this snake. Okay? Look at it. It's a single pathway, right? It's a single. Or maybe this snake will be eaten by oil. Have you seen? Step by step. That means a single pathway. It's a single pathway of what? Feeding. That means transfer energy involves single pathway. Clear? It's called what? Food chain. Like a chain, step by step. Get it? Okay. Yes. And what the food web? Food web. Food web is a network. It's a network. Is a network of what? Interrelated food chain in ecosystem. Is a network of what? Interrelated food chain in what? In ecosystem. Feeding relationship in ecosystem, it is very complex. If you compare between food chain and food web, feeding in the relationship in food chain, it is simple because it's a single pathway. But feeding relationship in food web is what? Complex. Why complex? Why? Cannot be shown by just one food chain because organism, look at here, that's why, organism eat different food and are eating by multiple species. How? Look at this picture. For example, maybe this is what? Producer, right? Will be eating by grasshopper. Maybe the grasshopper may be eaten by the bird, right? And the bird to the maybe eating by the oil. It's one chain, right? It's one chain. Another chain. Maybe this mouse is eating what? The grass. And maybe the mouse will be eating by snake, and the snake will be eating by the cow. What are these? It is food chain. But food web is complex. Maybe this mouse will eating by this snake. And maybe, sorry, this one is important. This, what is it? It's grasshopper. Will eat what? Producer. Maybe this grasshopper will be eating by this snake, or maybe eating by this bird. Okay? So it's what? Are eating by multiple species. Clear? How different? Okay? Or for example, the mouse is eating grass too. And this one is eating grass too. And the bird is eating grass too. So they eating what? They're showing by the food chain because organisms eat different food. They are different food and different species. That is the difference between food chain and food web. Clear? Look at here. What does a food chain differ from food web? Food chain shows the single pathway, as I said, single pathway of energy flow, and each organism is eaten by the next in the straight line. But food web shows many what? Interconnected. They are what? Connected. Interconnected food chain. Have you seen? Many food chains are interconnected. Because most organisms eat more than one type of food and eaten by more one of predator. Clear? Maybe mouse, for example, mouse is eating what? Plant. And the mouse may be eating by what? By fox maybe. Maybe eating by cat. Okay? So it's different what? different species will eating the one type. Okay. Yes, let's go quantity of energy. If you calculate it or mathematical calculate it, how much the energy will transfer to the next level. Okay? But quantity energy of transfer, how energy transfer between tropical level in the ecosystem. Energy transferred between tropical level in ecosystem only about 10%. Only about what? 10%. So that's meant only 10% of energy will transfer to the next level. Only how much percent? 10%. Or biomass. We're talking about biomass. Who remember what the biomass? Which means the organic material such as protein, carbohydrate, okay, lipid. These are biomass. Who make biomass? Yalla, last time we talked about it. Biomass. Who represent to the next level? Producer. They make biomass, which is by a process photosynthesis. Clear? But does producer, they represent all biomass into the next level? Of course not. Only about how much the quantity is about 10%. Why only 10%? Because some of them they're using for respiration, for reproduction, okay, for many things to growing the organism. Transfer from one trophic level to the next level. So only how much? Percent 10. So producer have what? For example, producer have how many biomass? 10,000 kilogram of biomass. Does represent all into the next? No. The second level, it is what? Herbivore. We talked about it, okay? So transfer only how much? Only 1,000. Transfer from producer to the next to herbivore only about 1,000 kilogram. So to the next, some small carnivore, they get what? How many of these biomass? Only 100 kilogram. Okay, so start to decrease it from down to up. Start to decrease the what? The biomass, the quantity of energy. Start to what? To decrease it. Why to decrease it? Because each organism from each level, they're using this biomass for their himself, for production, for respiration, for growing, okay? Large carnivore, they get how much? 10 kilogram. So decrease or increase it? Of course it is decrease it. Clear? This showing that the energy decreases, okay, at each step in food chain. Look at here. The first level, as I said, the level is formed how many? 3 or 4 level, okay, tropical level. In the first level, which kind of organism is present? Producer, which is, it has what? How many biomass? 10,000 kilogram biomass. Does all 10,000 represent to the next level? Of course not. Only about 10%. Only about 10% into herbivore. So herbivore only about 10% into small carnivore, and carnivore only about 10% into large carnivore. So what about the energy? Does increase it or increase it? Of course, from down to the up. Start to what? From down to up. What happened to the energy? Start to what? Decrease it, right? Okay, start to decrease it. Clear? As I said, it's easy, right? Okay, that's all about quantity of energy. Let us go to why does energy decrease it? As I mentioned it, why is energy decreased at the each autotrophic level? Because organism is most of for what? For the life process, such as what? Movement, maintain body temperature. Okay. For movement, for maintaining body temperature, of course, the maintaining body temperature, you need energy to maintain, right? If represent all the energy to the next level, what happens to the organism? Cell will die. That's why, okay? Movement and reproduction, respiration, okay? That's why it decreases. What the percentage of energy that transfer? One reason that some of the organs in trophic level accepted being eaten. Look at here. There's another. Why? Look at this question, it's important. Why the percent of energy transfer is so low? Why is so low? Maybe in the first level or the second level. For example, a mouse does not be eaten by other organism. Will stay at the same level. So does transfer the energy from mouse to another level? Of course not. So will stay at the same level. That's why it is slow. Clear? So one reason to the sum of the organism in the trophic level except being eaten, as I said, like a mouse, does not being eaten by other organism. So what happened? Will stay until die. When die, the decomposers comes to what? To breaking down the organic material and returning to the soil. So does it change? Does it transfer the energy? No, will stay. That's why it's slow to turn to the next level. Eventually they die, became food, and decompose their energy content, but it does not pass it to the higher trophic level. That's why it's slow. That's one reason. The second reason, even when the organism is eating, some of the molecule on the body does not eaten by the other organism, such as what? Such as hoof and hair. Hoof and hair is contain energy, but maybe this organism does not like to eat hair and hooves. Okay, and it is another reason. That's why the transfer energy is slow between the levels. Clear? Of course, it's clear. It's easy. Okay, let's go to how do plant use and transfer energy? As we know, plant has more energy than the other levels. Okay, plants store energy about how much? 1 to 5%. Okay, which is they get energy from the solar energy capture with other organism. Okay, the rest is reflect. That's all, as I mentioned before, that's a plant transfer all biosphere or biomass into the next level. Of course, not some of them. They're using for himself, using for life process or lose as a head. Okay, so let's think of trophical living. Why ecosystems have only a few trophical living, and why are there for a few organisms in the high level? For example, if you look at the primate, this picture, if you note look at the second level, which is herbivore. The number of organisms more than the second one, and the second one more than the third one. At the end, why the number of organisms is different from the level? Because of energy. For example, there is more producer more plant, that's why when more plant, more energy, that's mean more organism. Okay? So ecosystem have only a tropical level because about what 10% energy to the next. Other result, high trophical level can support what few organisms, while lower level have more, because lower level have more energy. That is why. Okay. Thank you for listening, dear student.